The Wolverine. The most dangerous predator in the boreal forest by body weight is something you could lose in a large backpack. It weighs between 20 and 40 pounds and routinely drives wolves and grizzly bears off kills, not because it wins the fight, but because it won't stop trying. It belongs to the weasel family, not the bear family. Turns out it's the largest land-dwelling mustelid on Earth, making it closer to a giant mink than anything ursine, which somehow makes it worse. A wolf outweighs a wolverine by roughly 8 to 1. A grizzly bear is closer to 20 to 1. The wolverine will engage either one over a carcass, and typically keep the carcass. By body weight, that's the equivalent of a house cat bluffing a Rottweiler, except the cat actually wins. The wolverine's jaw has a rotating carnassial tooth, a last upper molar that swings 90 degrees to shear frozen meat off permafrost-locked carcasses. That tooth was built for frozen megafauna, the kind that piles up when a dead mammoth freezes solid through an Arctic winter. There is no comparable food source today. The tooth is still there. The wolverine's territorial hoarding and willingness to fight anything that moves were calibrated for competing with dire wolves, giant short-faced bears, and scimitar cats, all of them gone for roughly 12,000 years. The wolverine didn't update. It still caches food against extinction-level competition that never shows up. Everything about this animal was built to compete in a world that ended 12,000 years ago. It's been winning anyway. The Saiga Antelope. If you saw a Saiga Antelope walking toward you, your first thought would be that its face is broken. The nose droops past the chin, inflatable, tubular, almost trunk-like, wrong for any animal alive today. The Saiga's nose looks wrong. It's actually precision-engineered climate control, and every individual is born with exactly this architecture. In winter, the nasal chambers warm incoming air from minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit to body temperature before it reaches the lungs. In summer, those same chambers run in reverse, cooling hot incoming air and humidifying it against dust storms. One nose, two completely opposite functions, built for temperature swings of over 100 degrees within a single year. The mammoth steppe, the biome this nose was designed for, once stretched from Western Europe to Eastern Canada, covering more ground than all modern forests combined. The Saiga's 3-inch nose is the only surviving piece of functional hardware from that entire ecosystem. The nose was built for a climate with no shelter, no trees, super cold winters, and hot, dust-choked summers. The modern world stopped needing that equipment 12,000 years ago. The Saiga never got the memo. There used to be millions of Saiga. Now there are a few 100,000, holding on in patches of Kazakhstan and Mongolia, running on hardware built for a world that's been gone longer than recorded human history. You're looking at the last living creature that was designed for a world we'll never see. The pronghorn. The pronghorn can sustain 55 miles an hour for miles. It has oversized lungs, a windpipe the diameter of a garden hose, and a heart proportionally 3 times larger than a comparably sized deer. No predator in North America today can come close to catching it. And the pronghorn isn't fast because of anything that exists. It evolved to outrun something that went extinct 10,000 years ago. The American cheetah, Myricynonyx trumani, was faster than the African cheetah, built lighter, designed for open terrain. It went extinct 10,000 years ago. The pronghorn still runs like it's being chased by one. Biologists call this evolutionary echo. The heart is proportionally 3 times a deer's mass. The lungs are twice the volume. Every extra unit of that hardware is serving a predator that's been gone for 10,000 years. It's like training to beat a competitor who retired before you were born, and still qualifying for the Olympics every year. Every upgrade the pronghorn carries came from an arms race with a predator suite that's been extinct for 100 centuries. The predators lost. The pronghorn kept every upgrade. The American cheetah has been gone for 10,000 years. The pronghorn is still warming up. If you're finding these animals as wild as I do, I post new animal deep dives regularly. Subscribing really helps. Thanks. The Musk Ox. Every time a wolf pack approaches a musk ox herd, something happens that looks like a drill no one taught. The adults form a perfect outward-facing circle. Calves go to the center. Every horn points outward. No one commanded this. It activates automatically, like a switch tripping. The Wolverine, the Saiga, the Pronghorn, and now the Musk Ox. Every one of these animals is still solving a problem that was erased 12,000 years ago. The Musk Ox circle was engineered for the Pleistocene predator suite. Dire wolves in packs of 8 to 12, scimitar cats with 8-inch canines, short-faced bears that stood 6 feet at the shoulder and could hit 40 miles an hour. All of them gone. The circle still activates. A short-faced bear stood 6 feet at the shoulder. A modern grizzly stands roughly 5 feet. A dire wolf outweighed a modern gray wolf by roughly 40%. The Musk Ox circle was built to hold against all three simultaneously. Modern wolves are the light version of what this defense was engineered for. Orphaned calves raised in captivity still form the circle when startled. Researchers keep arriving at the same conclusion. Because modern predators are the smaller, slower version of what this defense was built for. The musk ox's defense has never been beaten by anything alive today. That's not because modern wolves aren't dangerous. It's because modern wolves aren't the threat this defense was built for. The wild Bactrian camel. There are fewer wild Bactrian camels alive right now than there are giant pandas, and most people have never heard of them. They live in the Gobi and Gashan Gobi deserts in China and Mongolia, in terrain used as nuclear testing grounds from 1964 onward. There are roughly 950 of them, and they can drink water more saline than the ocean. No other large land mammal on Earth can do this. The ocean runs about 3.5% salinity. The Gashan Gobi salt springs run higher. A human who drinks ocean water is dead within a few days. The wild Bactrian camel is grazing beside a salt lake that would kill a horse, running biology that hasn't been fully explained in a peer-reviewed paper since a 2001 study attempted to document it. The DNA difference between wild and domestic Bactrian camels is roughly 3%. The DNA difference between humans and chimpanzees is about 1.2%. There is genetically distinct as two separate primate lineages. The wild version survived a nuclear test site and drinks hypersaline water. The domestic version can do neither. The saltwater processing remains one of the genuinely unresolved questions in large mammal physiology. 950 animals, running biology that stumped researchers for decades. The things that survived the Ice Age tend to have found solutions the rest of the animal kingdom didn't think to try. The caribou. The caribou is the only member of the deer family where both males and females grow antlers. That's a clue. No other deer spent the Ice Age migrating 3,000 miles a year across Pleistocene tundra with predators following every step. Every autumn, the caribou's hooves restructure themselves. The same hoof, same biological material, changes its mechanical properties as temperature drops. In summer, spongy footpads provide traction on soft tundra. As cold arrives, a hard, exposed rim emerges that grips ice like a crampon. Nature gave the caribou winter tires, except the tires are built into the animal and switch themselves every October. The Bathurst herd subspecies migrates over 3,000 miles in a single year, roughly the distance from Los Angeles to New York, on foot, through blizzards and river crossings. A human marathon is 26 miles. The caribou runs the equivalent of more than 100 marathons per year, with wolves tracking the entire way. Most people assume antlers are a male trait across the deer family. The caribou is the exception. On open tundra with no cover and predators from every direction, every animal in the herd needs a weapon. Picture a herd whose hooves are quietly reconfiguring their material properties every October, switching from hiking boots to crampons on a biological schedule, while their antlers have already grown back to full size. The caribou is still walking the migration route it established during the Pleistocene. The ice it originally followed has retreated hundreds of miles north. The caribou followed it. The snow leopard. The snow leopard lives at altitudes between 10,000 and 20,000 feet, in terrain so steep that prey sometimes falls to its death after being struck. Most snow leopards die without a human ever seeing one, and during the ice ages, they were across 2 continents. A 2025 phylogenetic study reconstructed the snow leopard's ice age range. During colder Pleistocene phases, the cold, high-altitude habitat the snow leopard required expanded outward from the Tibetan Plateau across Central Asia and kept spreading. Snow leopard fossils have been found as far west as the Iberian Peninsula. The cat didn't migrate into Europe. The climate moved the cat's native habitat westward, and the snow leopard followed its home range. When the ice ages ended and the cold retreated, the snow leopard retreated with it. The Himalayas aren't a refuge. They're the last place still cold enough and steep enough to be the snow leopard's native climate. The Tibetan Plateau sits at an average elevation of 16,000 feet, higher than most peaks in the Alps. Every physical system the snow leopard relies on had to be recalibrated for an air density that incapacitates most of the cat lineage. The real estate portfolio made no sense until the whole continent was its climate zone. The snow leopard once had Europe. Now it has the Himalayas. Given what it can survive up there, it probably considers that a fair trade. The Takin. The Takin looks like someone was designing a large goat, changed their mind, decided to try a wildebeest, and handed the project to an engineer who'd only ever seen a moose. It weighs up to 770 pounds, and the thing keeping it alive isn't its size, it's what's coming out of its skin. The Takin's skin glands produce a continuous flow of thick, strongly scented oil that saturates the coat from the inside out. Not seasonally, continuously. Wool retains heat when wet until it hits about 30% water saturation, at which point it loses most of its insulating value. In a Himalayan winter where precipitation shifts multiple times daily between rain, sleet, and snow, standard wool fails. The Takin's oil-saturated coat repels water before saturation can occur, permanently waterproofed from the inside. Look at it and you'd think it was designed by a committee, each member in a separate room. The enormous moose-like nasal arch sits on an otherwise goat-like face over a body that shares more genetic material with sheep than with anything it visually resembles. The mountain environment independently produced this body plan through the same pressures that built the musk ox and the snow leopard. The Takin is another entry in the long list of animals still running Pleistocene biology in a post-Pleistocene world. Except where most of them kept the weapons or the speed, the Takin kept the plumbing. The Takin is what happens when the Himalayas select for surviving absolutely everything, and the animal takes that literally. Sometimes surviving 12,000 years of change isn't about being the fastest, it's about being too strange to replace. The Tibetan Antelope. The Tibetan Plateau at 13 to 18,000 feet runs at roughly 60% of sea level oxygen concentration. Most ungulates at that altitude are doing well just to walk. The Tibetan antelope, the chiru, runs at 50 miles an hour up there. Scientists working on its physiology described finding exactly the adaptations they expected, plus several they hadn't anticipated. An animal that over-engineered for its own habitat. Sea level oxygen runs about 21%. At 15,000 feet, it drops to roughly 10 to 12%. A world-class human runner loses more than 40% of their pace at that altitude. The chiru doesn't slow down. It runs faster than most antelope manage at sea level, in air that would incapacitate a horse. Its hemoglobin binds oxygen more efficiently at low partial pressure. Its muscle fiber composition is calibrated for aerobic performance in thin air. The old story about chatouche, the extraordinarily fine fiber from the chiru's winter coat, was that it came from wild combing, that herders gathered fallen fiber from rocks where chiru rubbed during molting. Turns out a single scarf requires killing 3 to 5 animals, and every piece ever made came from a dead chiru. The combing story was trade cover. The population collapsed to roughly 70,000 in the late 1990s under heavy poaching. Anti-poaching enforcement brought it back to over 300,000 by the early 2020s. The chiru had survived 500,000 years of Himalayan winter. The thing that nearly finished it was the luxury scarf market. The American bison. Every other large Pleistocene megafauna grazer in North America is gone. The mastodon, the mammoth, the giant ground sloth, the ancient horse, the giant camel, all of them. The bison is the only one still here, and it almost wasn't. In 1889, there were 541 bison left on Earth. 541. The species that had once reshaped a continent's ecology was within a decade of becoming a museum exhibit. The bison herd that Lewis and Clark encountered in 1804 stretched across the Great Plains in formations that took 3 days to pass a single observation point. A single herd could cover 100 square miles. 541 animals is a number that fits in a school gymnasium. That was the entire remaining margin. The bison survived the Pleistocene extinction by doing something none of its contemporaries could, adapting to a rapidly warming, drying grassland without needing a specific food web. Dietary generalism was the variable. The animals that couldn't shift their food range as the Pleistocene ecosystem collapsed went extinct one by one. The bison ate what was available and kept moving. Then it nearly went extinct again, not from climate, but from commercial hunting in the 1800s. Wild populations hit roughly 31,000 by 2019. The mammoth, the mastodon, the ground sloth, the American horse, all gone. 541 bison were the entire remaining margin between North America having its last Pleistocene megafauna grazer and not having one. The polar bear. Every other animal in this video has spent 12,000 years adapting to a world without ice. The polar bear spent those 12,000 years going deeper into ice dependence. It's the only animal here that got more ice age after the ice age ended, and its fur isn't white. Each individual hair is a transparent, hollow tube with zero pigment. The white is an optical scattering effect, same physics as snow. Turns out the skin underneath is black, absorbing every photon that makes it through. The polar bear diverged from brown bears between 150,000 and 480,000 years ago, roughly when anatomically modern humans also appeared. The polar bear only very recently decided to commit entirely to ice, hunting seals at breathing holes, running on fat, with no backup plan for a world without sea ice. Its population sits at roughly 25,000 and trending downward. The Wolverine still hoards food against extinct competitors. The Musk Ox still holds a circle for a predator suite gone 12,000 years. The polar bear built its entire existence around ice, faster than almost any large mammal has ever built anything, and is now watching that world melt. It solved the Ice Age perfectly. The Ice Age is leaving anyway. Every animal in this video is still solving a problem erased 12,000 years ago. Most of them are winning. The polar bear solved the problem in reverse. It became the Ice Age, and the Ice Age is ending. I post more animal deep dives every week. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.